A new marketplace is opening up, and it's not the marketplace that you think. It's coming right up. Hey everybody, Zach here from Infernal Tool Technologies, and if you're new to the channel, then please think about subscribing down below and hit the like button if this video brought you any value. So today we're going to be talking about carbon credits and the new carbon market that will be coming in the future. And we can all get behind this and potentially make a good amount of money off this. But first, for us to make that happen, we have to understand what the heck is a carbon credit system and how can we build our business and build countries around these initiatives that are taking place right now. So, in previous videos, I outlined how carbon credits are going to become a big part of our future. And basically, it is a way for people to track the greenhouse gas emissions that you are putting out into the earth. And they are going to have it not only be on a countrywide scale, so certain countries will be allotted X amount of carbon credits, but it's also going to go down to the business sector as well. So businesses will be allotted a certain amount of credits, and you have to follow that criteria. You can't go over your allotted amount in a yearly period. So that's the core of what it is, but it goes so much deeper than that. And in the previous videos, I showed how we're going to be going on a path to become net zero. So the greenhouse gas emissions that your business or countries put out by 2050, they want it to, you're offsetting that to where we are recycling, I guess, the carbon that we're putting out. We're taking out what we're putting in. So something that really piqued my interest when I started looking into this whole carbon credit system was that the amount of carbon credits that you are allotted in a year, you are going to actually be able to, let's say if you are way under at the end of the year, you only emitted so much, or you have infrastructure in your business that actually extracts so much carbon and you're left over with X amount of credits, you can actually trade that on an open market. So basically, it's going to open up a gigantic marketplace for businesses that run inefficiently and businesses that run very efficiently. So it's going to incentivize people to create businesses that are extremely sustainable and extremely efficient. So if you are, let's say you don't really put out a lot of emissions in the air, you don't have like diesel vehicles running constantly, you're not having a factory that's pumping gases into the air, but you have infrastructure like solar, wind, or some sort of forest, or something that is going to actually extract carbon from the air, you're going to actually get credits that you can sell. And this all really started to come to the forefront back in in the 1990s. And so in 1997, they came up with an agreement called the Kyoto Protocol. And basically what this protocol is just a tracking system for people's greenhouse gas emissions. So the countries that signed on to this would have to report the amount of emissions that they are putting out into the air, and we're going to have to try to reduce that and at least come up with basically an understanding of how much we're putting out there and how we can mitigate a lot of the emissions that we're putting out into the air. So it actually broke up the sector into the world actually into two different categories, and it was industrialized countries and developing companies. And the industrialized companies, they called this Annex 1. And so if you're a country that is a part of Annex 1, then one of the amendments that they made to the Kyoto Protocol is the fact that business, or countries rather, are going to actually have to invest $100 billion per year into the developing countries. So this rolls into the Paris Agreement as well, the Paris Climate Agreement that countries are involved with. It's to basically make industrialized countries help out the developing countries while being extremely sustainable at the same time, trying to rise up and make developing countries get on board, because technology is moving so fast that these developing countries are just going to be left in the dust if they can't get educated and get financing to really bring their countries up to the same level as some of the more advanced countries right now. So back to the Kyoto Protocol is basically industrialized countries are given a certain amount of credits, like we were talking earlier in the video about how you can only put so many out, and if you have an excess, then you can give it to another country and you can sell that for a price to another country, so that we can kind of see where the problems lie in the world. What countries are not working efficiently enough, or living up to standards that we're going to be trying to get to 2050, because all these goals are to get to 2050, to get us all to net zero carbon emissions. And all these protocols that are coming right now are really just trying to get countries on board to build the infrastructure, basically, to where we can actually be reaching that goal by 2050. But back in 2015, America exited the Kyoto Protocol, which actually gave the whole initiative, it stopped it in its tracks, basically, because they needed a certain amount of countries to actually be on board. And with America dropping out, it delayed this actually going into effect, and it still hasn't gone into effect in 2020. But in 2020, that's when we had the Paris Climate Agreement, where Donald Trump actually dropped out of the Paris Climate Agreement as well, which kind of slowed that down a little bit. But now in 2021, Biden actually re-entered us into the Paris Agreement. And the main reason that the United States is so pivotal for these agreements to actually work is because we are one of the biggest greenhouse gas emitters, us and China. We attribute to 43% of the total global emissions. So it's kind of a big deal if either the United States or China doesn't actually get involved in this, because it's not going to make a big enough impact. All of this time and all these resources that are going to go to making this happen, if these two countries aren't involved, then what's it's not going to make a big enough change, like I said. So with the Paris Climate Agreement, they, like I said earlier in the video, they want these developing nations to take the money, and that because they have infrastructure already. So the businesses that are there and the countries, the infrastructure that they have, they can be more sustainable. So on the open marketplace for these carbon credits, they're going to actually be able to make a profit from being more sustainable and more efficient. And basically the understanding that I'm coming at is for the first few years and the beginning of this agreement, when it really takes effect, that extra money is going to be basically funneled into developing nations. So part of the Paris Agreement is that every year an industrialized nation will have to give $100 billion to a developing nation, and I think a lot of that money is going to come from this carbon credit. And I got to do a lot more research, but it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out, because if there's industrialized countries that aren't living up to these standards, then I don't know how they're going to meet these goals. That's going to be extremely tough. I mean, just dishing out $100 billion to a different country, a lot of your taxpayers are not going to they're not going to be okay with that. Um, especially if it's coming from their tax dollars. So it's going to really force people to become more efficient and become more sustainable and put this infrastructure in. So I can kind of get on board with their logic with this. It's really just trying to put the squeeze on these countries to really just make them become more sustainable and make a lot more changes. But at the same time, it could be extremely hurtful to the economy. I mean, doing something this impactful to countries can disrupt the economy extremely. I mean, forcing businesses to be sustainable and have a jump on this green energy movement is going to disrupt their business model potentially, and it might even go as far as making people not even go into business, because there's going to be laws and regulations that are going to make it so extremely difficult for them to even make a profit. And what's the point of people in business? It's to make a profit. So it's going to be really difficult to try to get all these businesses to be sustainable and put the infrastructure into their business, and keep them around and keep them making a profit. I just don't see that happening for a lot of businesses. There's just certain ones that don't run that efficiently. So maybe there's going to be a wait there, and this is where it comes from countries making their own regulations. So that's why I think they broke it down to carbon credits for countries and carbon credits for businesses. So some businesses might get more, some businesses might get less, some countries might get more, and some countries might get less. And it's going to be a whole open marketplace. So if some businesses do not want to actually put the infrastructure in, then they potentially could buy credits from a more efficient company. And some companies might just come out that this is what their business is actually they deal in the business of selling carbon credits. And I can totally see that happening. People putting the infrastructure in, if it's solar, wind, water, whatever it is. And probably not water, because that's already all owned. But I can totally see people actually building businesses around that, and it could potentially work. And if we live in a capitalistic society, which I truly believe is the right way to go, where there's not that much government intervention, then this could potentially work, where the businesses that aren't being efficient um, could buy some from businesses that are being more efficient. And if that's still not working for them, then that business model is not going to work. And unfortunately, that business is probably going to go under. And that's just the natural cycle that's going to have to happen, because everything's been going so great so far, but with all these technological advances that we're having in the world and the increased population, there just is stress being put on the earth. I mean, that's just, I think it's exaggerated, especially in the media. It's extremely exaggerated, but you have to look at it logically. There is some sort of stress happening. It's a lot different nowadays. We are burdening the earth a lot more. So we all do have to be conscious of this. And we, as business owners, have to be extremely conscious of what is happening with these agreements. It's extremely important. We just entered back into it this year. So it's gonna be coming. Especially a lot of countries have sustainability goals of 2030. There's the final goal of 2050. But I've been hearing a lot in the news of countries actually trying to beat these goals. There's countries like Sweden and Switzerland and I think Denmark. They're trying to meet the 2030 goals by 2025. And it's going to just be a race at this point for, I think, countries to really become more sustainable because, like I said, it's going to all go back to this market where you can sell carbon credits. And it's going to be a system that massive amount of money is made. I mean, I'm not, I have not done enough research to really know how this is going to build, but I am going to, and I'll share everything that I find with you guys. But I think this is something that we really need to start looking at. On just a business owner level, you need to think of, if you already have a business, maybe you're going to have to make some changes to that business. So the fleet of vehicles that you roll around with, if you actually have building, let's say you have a warehouse, you have a factory, you have an office building, is there something you can add to that building that is going to actually lower your greenhouse gas emissions, and lower the amount of maybe electricity that you're using? Maybe you could produce some electricity if you have wind or solar or something like that. So, but if you don't have a business yet and you're thinking about starting a business, then these are some things that you're going to really have to start thinking about. Can your business model work? Are you going to be in a business where you're running diesel trucks 24/7? If it's like a delivery business, or if it's maybe a demolition business or something like that, you're really going to have to think about these things. Are you going to have to purchase carbon credits? Or are you going to have to start looking for an alternative fleet where maybe it's like half diesel, half electric? Um, these are things that you're really going to have to start playing through. And if you look back in some of my videos, I said that if you're actually seeking funding as well, this is something you really, really need to look at, because the funding that you're going to be trying to get, you're going to have a clear path of how you are going to cut emissions, how you, if you're going to be around in 2050, you're going to be carbon neutral. You're going to have a perfect layout of your carbon footprint. If you're developing a building, you're going to have to go from the first stages of development to the end stages to actual production, or whatever the business is doing, the life cycle of the business. You're going to have that all mapped out, the carbon that you're putting out there. So start educating yourself. I urge you to start just reading some articles. There's some amazing information out there. I'm just starting to get into this myself, but I, just from the little while that I've been researching this stuff, it's really opened my eyes to realize that there is some big changes coming down the pipeline. Huge changes. And it's going to be revolved all around climate change. They've been pushing this agenda of climate change for quite some time now. And now they've just ramped it up. They've completely ramped it up with all the fires in the west of America, with the hurricanes and the deforestation and trash and recycling. These things are just, we're getting it shoved down our throats right now. So when something like that happens, it kind of triggers a switch in my mind to be like, okay, I need to, something's coming, and we need to get to the front of this. We need to be behind this change that's happening, but we need to be at the front of it to where we can actually be a thriving business, and we can still stay in business. I mean, that's important. With the economy the way it is right now, it's going to be extremely difficult. But I'd like to, for a second, just because my background is in the construction industry, so I want to roll this all back into the construction industry. And I think that people are really going to have to start thinking about what they do in their business. If you're just a general contractor, or you're a developer, or even if you're just a handyman, these things are going to matter, because they're going to give you an allotted amount. And that's going to break it down to even your commuting. How much are you driving? That's one thing that I've seen a lot of in the past years. They've been really pushing, like, the insurance agencies. They want you to install these things on your vehicles that track your driving, and track everything about you with driving. So, and then GPS is rolled into that as well. They're going to track how much you are moving around. If you're a handyman, you're going to 5 jobs in a day. That's going to be on your. They're going to be watching that, and it's going to be part of the carbon credits. You're going to actually have to um, figure out a way that you're still running your business, but not going over that allotted amount, because they're going to fine you, and you're going to get fined, and or you can purchase some carbon credits, but I guarantee you when the marketplace gets opened, it's not going to be that far from the fine. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be pretty close to the same price, unless you get up to the point where you're big business. But when it's just small peanuts, like a handyman or something, that's going to be, you're just going to get fined. And so going back to the general contractors and the developers, this is something that people like you are really going to have to start looking at. You're going to have to figure out ways that you can run the job site more efficiently, because you're going to be doing jobs on a larger scale. If you're building homes, or you're building apartment complexes or factories or whatever you're doing, you're going to have to, it's already difficult enough when you're taking each phase of the business or of the job and trying to just make it work. Get all the trades in at the right times, do it at a cost that is efficient, and make a profit at the end of everything. But now you're going to have to start looking into the carbon credits, and in your financials, you're going to have a carbon report, the carbon footprint that you're putting out there. And all these protocols and agreements are what are going to make this happen. They've had this, I mean, like I said, the Kyoto Protocol was back in the 90s, and it was an extension of a different agreement. I can't remember off the top of my head what that agreement was, but it was basically an extension from that. So it's been going on for even farther than that, and it really hasn't come to the forefront. Like, it's not in your face. You're not you're not getting regulated too terribly. I mean, in the construction industry, there is a lot of laws and regulations on ways we build stuff, on how we're affecting the environment surrounding it, just zoning. There's a lot of that, but it's going to get even worse. They're gonna be watching every phase of the project, from the deliveries to the project to the materials that you're sourcing. All these things are going to be something that you have to focus on with your business. And I want to bring it back now to the carbon credits. And so we need to all look into this, and we need to start realizing that on a business level, we're going to be allotted a certain amount, and no one wants to get fined, and people are going to want to have an actual access of these credits, because that could be a really plus. I want to look at the bright side of this, is that it could be great for your business. If you run your business very efficiently, you're going to be left over with these, and you can sell them. And so that's just at the end of the year, that's going to be a nice little bonus for your business. If you're running an entire fleet of electric vehicles, if you're maybe you have some sort of, at your warehouse back at your shop or whatever, you have a solar farm or something, or just you're generating energy somehow to offset what you're putting out there, you probably have an excess at the end of the year. And you potentially, the greatest part about this is that the infrastructure that you build, or the changes that you make to your business, you could pay off that loan with selling your carbon credits. So let's say you go to a bank, you want to make these changes to your business. You have your financial plan out, you even have your carbon footprint laid out for the bank. They look at you, they say, you know what, this looks great. They give you the thumbs up, and they give you the money. You make these huge changes to your business, and then at the end of the year, or maybe the end of the next year, you actually see the benefits of these changes that you made, and you have an excess of the credits. You can sell those and pay off your loan, and you're going to be saddled with, then it's basically an investment for you. So every year you'll be able to rely on and generate money off of those carbon credits, because you were at the forefront of this, and you built a business that's more efficient, more sustainable, It's following all these things that they've been pushing down our throats, the sustainability goals, um, the Build Back Better stuff. And you know what? Some of these things I think, are absolutely crazy, but you know what? The powers that be are going to make these changes, and unfortunately, um, I don't think we're going to be able to stop this. It's just going to come down the pipeline. And if you look through my previous videos, I do talk about some things with this, is that I really would like us to all get together and get to the forefront of what constitutes a carbon credit. If we can get behind that and come up with creative ways to actually say, you know what, well, this is pulling carbon out of the air, or it's stopping someone else from creating carbon, or something like that. Like, let's say you have a acreage of farming, you have you built a forest, you planted trees, and you have a forest now. Those things should be credits, and you should get them every year. So that's what I really would love to build this community around. I would love for us all to get together to really find out how that we can navigate around what's coming down the pipeline. There's laws and regulations that are going to be coming, and if we can navigate ourselves around it and come out on top and actually make good changes to the world, then I'm all about that. And I'm all about hearing from you guys what you think we can do about this. Do you just hate this idea of everything? Do you just want us to really just push against that and not let this happen? Let me know down below. Do you agree with me where it's like, okay, I can see a lot of these initiatives and why they're coming out, but we need to maintain our voice, and we need to come up with our own ways of constituting what a carbon credit is? Then let me know down below. Let me know what you guys think. Come up with some great ideas, and let's bounce them back and forth and try to figure this out, because if we can start having these talks right now, maybe in 5 years, we'll be looking at some of this laws and regulations, and we're already prepared for it then. We have maybe a group of people that have written documents. We get together with petitions of certain things. Let's do it. Let's get together. Let's try to get at the forefront of this carbon credit system. Let's build businesses that are great and efficient and are going to make us a lot of money. And let's do good with that. So if this video brought you any value, like I said in the beginning, please leave a comment. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to be talking a lot more about what's coming down the pipeline with these green initiatives, with the sustainability goals and the carbon credit system, and how it pertains to businesses, because I really want to speak to business owners out there and start a community of like-minded individuals who want to just do well for themselves and their family and their community, but be able to navigate through all this muck, because there's a lot of it coming at us. So I hope I brought you some value. Like I said, like the video if I did, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.